Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes, and on this Monday, it's Coy Malone Day. Hello, Coy. How are you?
Hey, Sybil, I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. We were talking a little bit of weather earlier. Did you have a good weekend? Did you get outside to play?
I did get outside to play a little bit. So the weather started off pretty tricky with a lot of rain on Friday, and then it kind of faded out on Saturday. People were planning for flooding. We had like a lot of different flood um, warnings that were in effect, and that didn't quite happen. So I know some people are a little bit upset because that changed
Hmm.
weekend plans. However, it ended up being sunny on Sunday. I got on played a little bit Saturday night, so
Was that outside playing or just going out?
no, I guess it was like going out, going in. Some friends had a game night at a house, so I mean that was fun. But I don't know if I really call it game night because it's more so drinking games and then strategy games and card games. So I didn't really like that. I had to quit.
You don't like card games?
No, I don't like drinking games.
Oh, drinking games. So the
Mm-mm.
strategy and the card games, you were good.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you could choose to be a part of one or the other, right? You weren't forced to do any of the drinking games, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, we started out with the drinking game, then I quit. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna keep doing this.
Or not start at all. And so, are you still working on your play?
I am. So we're still having our rehearsals and we're looking to have opening weekend on Mother's Day weekend. It may get pushed back just because we're still trying to get a couple of the roles casted. And some of the cast members travel from quite some ways to get to rehearsal. So sometimes that can make it a little bit
They
tricky.
come from out of state.
So one person is coming from out of state and another person is coming from a few counties over. So it takes them about an hour and a half. And
Oh
then some
wow.
people travel out of state for work. So it's just a lot of different things going on with our schedules, but we are continuing forward with our rehearsal.
Oh, awesome. Now remind people what the name of the play is right now.
The name of the stage play is Confessions of an Exotic Dancer, and it
And
is
would that be
about
you?
no, it wouldn't be me. It's
Okay.
not about me. It's loosely based off a true story of a man who is a former male exotic dancer
Okay.
who is just talking about how he got into the business and then showing a bunch of the crazy stories and happenings that surrounded that.
And you play his girlfriend?
Yes, one of his crazy girlfriends.
Does he have many crazy girlfriends, or are you the only crazy one? Or your
this
character is the only crazy one?
this is the only one I know of, according to the true story, and this is the only one in the play.
Okay.
And apparently, the one that's depicted in the play is a milder version of what happened in real life.
So the guy that's playing the exotic dancer, is he a former dancer? Is this his story?
Yes, he is.
And does he still have the exotic dancer body? I always wonder about that, how things change after a period of time.
He actually does. He's when you see him, you know, wears regular clothing, but his arms are still like. And so it's a husband and wife team. Actually, they've been together for several years, and I don't know if they met while he was an exotic dancer or right after. But they have had this play before debut here and in Houston. Nene Leakes was actually a part of the original cast
Oh, okay.
from its first
Are you
debut.
playing the Nene part?
No, I'm not.
And before we go on to more serious things, how do his arms sound?
His arms.
Uh-huh.
What else?
Yeah. That's the noise I was looking for. I've never heard a sound effect of arms like that, but okay, I'll go with Coy is one of our social justice writers. She is the social justice writer of the What You Need to Know newsletter. That is our Monday through Friday newsletter, and we seek to super serve the African American community with the stories that we provide, that we seek out, and then give you a synopsis of those stories. And Coy is social justice, as I said. Cameron Riley is a political writer. His little sister, Quinn Townsend Riley, is our LGBTQIA plus writer, as well as Aprilette Russell, who is our mental health and wellness contributor. And as such, we would love to have you join us on as a part of the What You Need to Know news team and subscribe to our absolutely free newsletter Just go to SybilWilkes.com, give us your name, your email address, and we'll have it in your email box every Monday through Friday morning. And let's start off with your story. Coy, Alabama police officer arrested a black woman after she charged him with racist acts. What
Yes.
happened?
This happened to 40-year-old Twyla Stallworth from Andalusia, Alabama. I've never heard of that city before. And she was arrested on February 24th after calling out an officer on his blatant racism. Basically, what happened was she made multiple calls to police complaining about her neighbor's loud music. And officers, they never showed up. They never followed up on her complaints. So she set off her own car alarm in order to get her neighbor's attention. And then this is when the neighbor complained about the car alarm and police showed up. So according to Ms. Stallworth's attorneys, Officer Grant Barton threatened to cite and arrest Stallworth for the car alarm, but did nothing to address her multiple complaints about her neighbor. So this is when she pointed out the disparity as the officer was returning to his police cruiser, and she suggested that it was racially motivated. Then this is when he turned around from his police car and basically asked her for ID. And this is when her 18-year-old son began recording. So this entire thing is also recorded by her son. And she refused to give her identification. She's on her own property. She didn't violate any laws, and he really had no reason to ask her for that. So he basically threatened that she would be arrested if she didn't comply and give her ID. And he said, "I'm not arguing with me. You show me your ID or you're going to jail." And so she again refused. And this is when he grabbed her by the wrist and pushes her onto her couch while she's screaming, and he handcuffs her.
And so he had gotten out to his police vehicle, and she said something to him. He said something to her, and then he came into the house and asked for her identification.
Yes, came up to the porch at that point and then asked for identification. The arrest happened inside the home, so I'm guessing he pushed her inside the house onto her couch and then arrested her. So she was arrested and charged with obstruction, resisting arrest, attempting to elude, and was detained for 15 hours. So far, there hasn't been any public record of a lawsuit being made or filed.
But she wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong at all. And eluding is a felony charge. So in a lot of places, it's a felony.
But she wasn't wrong for not providing her ID, according to her attorney, right?
Correct. So that wasn't breaking any laws. You do not have to surrender your identification at your home, your residence, if you're living there. There's a lot of situations where you don't have to surrender your ID. So if a police officer is demanding for you to do that or threatening that you go to jail, that's not probable cause for you to go to jail at all.
Wow.
Usually officers are doing that just so they can run your background, so they can find out if you have an active
priors, right?
Right.
So this is crazy. Is that a state law or a city law, or I'm unaware of the not having to show your ID in your own home. I've not been in that situation before. So is that a federal law? Is it state? Is it local? What does that look like?
I think it's a state law. I do know it is a law here in Georgia as well. I had an issue where I had to call police years ago, unfortunately, for a roommate of mine whose boyfriend was actually in the act of beating her. It was awful. Called the police. They showed up. They didn't do anything in terms of the boyfriend. I complained about that on the spot, and then they demanded that I show my ID because I'm going to jail. That was the threat. And I told them like that it doesn't work like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it's pretty.
Didn't go to jail either. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. But it also would behoove us to find out what the laws are in our local communities and municipalities and what have you.
Yes, it does.
Before we
you have a lot. I've also heard that law happening as well. If you're a passenger, right, and the driver gets pulled over and then they demand to see your ID as a passenger, you do not have to surrender that to a police officer.
Right.
And I know that for a fact in Georgia.
Yeah, I know you've seen that probably. But I just need to do my homework on that and find out what the rules, because I probably would have just surrendered my identification. But she's taken a stand, and I hope you will follow up on that, because I'm just really curious how this. It seems like it'll all kind of fall by the wayside since it's a nuisance arrest, right?
Right. And then we see things like this all the time with officers threatening arrests and threatening that you broke the law when simply they're just enforcing whatever they feel because of their egos.
We're going to move quickly through a couple of other things in the What You Need to Know newsletter, because we have a special guest who's going to be joining us. One of my favorites, former mayor of Atlanta, Mayor Bill Campbell, is standing by. We're going to talk about your elections that you have coming up tomorrow in Atlanta, in Georgia, as well as several other states. But we are talking about a couple of stories that I wrote for today. One, I was just told that it was very long, and I recognize its length, and I did have to do some major surgery on cutting of this article, but it was in reference to the president's State of the Union address, which I thought was really, really well done Thursday night, and just tried to give you a couple of highlights of that, especially regarding the elimination of student loan debt, and a couple of other things. But so take a look at that. And like I told people the other night, I watched so you didn't have to. Unfortunately, people did miss it, but tried to give them some of the highlights of that, and also a rundown of the speech, which was in Time magazine. The second story I worked on is something that we try to keep people apprised of, and those are events outside of the United States, and especially on the continent of Africa. And this is Nigeria, talking about the kidnappings of women and children, as Nigeria has come close to its anniversary. Believe it or not, it's been 10 years, 2014, since the hundreds of women and girls from a school dormitory in a village of Chibok in Nigeria. Dozens of girls are still missing. Boko Haram militants kidnapped these girls. But now, most recently, there is another group of women and children kidnapped. An estimated 200 disappeared from an area terrorized by the extremist group Boko Haram. And then just last week, there was another event hundreds of miles from the March 1st kidnappings. And according to the local media, at least 100 students were kidnapped from a local school, and residents report that local bandits were responsible. All hell is broken loose in that area regarding the kidnappings. Just because we don't hear much about it doesn't mean that they aren't still going on.
Right.
And as I said, even 10 years later, there are still hundreds of people who are still missing from that. You may remember the big social media campaign, Bring Our Girls Home. And the First Lady, former First Lady Michelle Obama, was a part of that, the hashtag event. It is a sad and cynical thing, in my opinion, to call this a way of life. This is not the way people should live, and live in fear, and just allow these terrorists to run roughshod and just to run amok, as they would say, and kidnap people and use them for creating new soldiers, and using the boys as soldiers as well. And in some cases, both the boys and the girls are used as sexual partners in raping of these children. So it is a desperate situation in which I don't know what they're doing to bring something to different to this, but this is what we're living with, and what they're living with, and we just want to keep people apprised of this. And also, it is Ministry Monday, and our friend Willie Mae McIver asked the question, and tell me if you have not been asked this question before: are you saved? And what does that mean? What does that look like? Take a look at Ministry Monday in our What You Need to Know newsletter. So, she says, talking about salvation and what that is, the state of being saved, and it is deliverance from the consequences of sin, which, one or two of us may know a thing or two about. And she does a great job every week, kind of breaking down and asking these questions, and talking about the prayer of salvation. It's a really interesting article. I think she does a marvelous job. So I hope that you look forward to her work every Monday, as do I, as well as what Coy does and the other young contributors to the What You Need to Know newsletter. All right, so Coy, as promised, the former mayor of Atlanta, Bill Campbell, a friend to the Tom Jordan Morning Show and a friend to ours now, is joining us, and hopefully we can talk a little bit. You guys have a big election coming up tomorrow, the state election, the presidential election. Hello, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing? I guess all the bad weather across the country, you never know what you're going to get. But
Yeah.
in Atlanta, it's delightful.
Well, it's cooler here in Texas, but it's sunny, and we've had the rain that you guys had over the weekend. We had some of that Friday into Saturday, and now it's been like in the 60s, close to 70 for the last several days, and the temperatures have dipped down overnight. But last week, Mr. Mayor, we had temperatures of 90 and 95 degrees. It's just absolutely crazy.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that climate change is affecting everything, and
Yep.
yet the Republican Party and the conservative movement continues to deny it, even though these incredible fires that you've had in Texas and
Yeah.
the remarkable fires that were in California, the rains that have been coming at an unprecedented rate all across the country, the glaciers that are melting. I mean, you can go on and on and
Yeah.
on, and yet we seemingly don't want to believe the science. What's so remarkable about this time in our life is that prior to the odious person that was the president, there was always an embrace of science. Science cured polio. Science
Yeah.
was so important for all of the issues that we have faced, and we thought that science was the great redeemer.
Yeah.
And yet now, virtually everything. I mean, there's a measles outbreak in Florida, where you have a charlatan who is the Surgeon General telling families, don't inoculate your children. This is just unbelievable and unprecedented. I'm 70 years old, and I can distinctly remember polio and all these things where you're getting your vaccinations, and not only was it routine, but people thought of it as this was the way to fight disease and to be more thoughtful about how we protected our children. And now seemingly even that's gone. I'm just so shocked at the absolute anarchy that is befallen the country. And there is a cult. There's a cult. Let's just be very honest. And quite frankly, I don't believe it's vastly different from the other cults that we've seen that have also had very terrible circumstances and outcomes. Where no election, it's the old adage, tails I win, heads I lose. I mean, if they lose, it's the election was somehow rigged.
Right.
If they win, it was somehow that's a validation of their point of view.
Yeah.
So how can you ever overcome that? I mean, it's when Trump won, interestingly enough, and I know you have a lot of other issues you want to discuss, but when Trump won, he won by virtually the same very narrow margins in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania that he lost by. Of course, he had bungled the COVID outbreak so horribly, wanting people to inject themselves with bleach and other preposterous notions, right, belying science across the board. And he lost by very narrow margins. But of course, here in Georgia as well. But when he won, it was because the people loved him. When he lost, it was because the election was rigged. I mean, how can you ever restore faith in our democracy if you utilize that
kind of logic?
It's not even logic. It's just pathetic, and it's
way of thinking.
A cult following. And when children are getting measles in Florida, and your state is burning up in Texas, and the rains are flooding areas that have not even had rain. In some of these places, the rain already in the first week of March has exceeded the entire year-long amount of rain for previous years. And yet there is sort of this almost cavalier notion that, well, it's just a rainy season,
It's
or
crazy. It's crazy,
I
but
just,
they don't want to attach any kind of real reason for it. And climate change, that is a term that, it's almost vile in their mouths. They just can't even attempt to say anything like that. I mean, we had a man talking about windmills causing cancer and other ridiculous notions that just kind of just come off the top of his head, or inputted, and then it just comes out. It goes in here and comes out there, and without any thinking or any rationalization. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and it's something we don't talk about enough. But part of this discussion I want to have is about your state elections tomorrow. Candidates are close in both the Democratic and the Republican Party, are very close to, if they win, I think they said with President Biden, if he wins 40% of the states' Democratic votes tomorrow, then he will have achieved the number of delegates he needs to get the nomination, although the nomination is just the foregone conclusion. And the same with Donald Trump. Some analysts are predicting that both men will be put over the top in their respective parties. And President Biden is on the primary ballots in Georgia, Mississippi, and Washington. Donald Trump is on the ballots in the same states plus Hawaii. And Georgia obviously is a state of great interest and fascination and concern after what happened when the former president went looking for 11,780 votes. And now what has happened as a result of that, an election interference case, and how that will go. So how big of a role do you think your state is going to play, not only in helping the current president get over and get those votes that he needs, those delegates that he needs for the nomination, so tomorrow, but as well as November? Do you expect that to be as big of a BFD, as President Biden would say, this
no,
time
I do
as
not.
it
In fact,
was?
President Biden was here along with the First Lady over the weekend,
Right.
and there was a tremendous turnout. In fact, Senator Warnock was also there, as well as a number of other elected officials. I don't believe that the election tomorrow has any real significance whatsoever. I mean, it's President Biden versus Satan, and that's the way it's going to be. And look, what we have to really understand. This election, and I'm certain there's so many young people, particularly, always say, well, you said the last one was the most important, and the one before that was the most important. Well, it turns out that they were. The election of Donald Trump has heralded a cult following and a division that we've never seen, and a rejection of science, and an absolute explosion of racism,
Yeah.
unbridled racism, things that you never would have imagined. People saying that seemingly has no recourse whatsoever. It's just or the rejection of history.
Right.
In Florida, it's now almost as though you are not even able to teach history. I don't know how you teach history without actually teaching history.
The truth. Right.
It's almost as though history happens in the future rather than in the past. So what I will say is that this election and this moment in time, there has never been in my life, and believe me, as I say, I've never seen anything quite like it, even in the darkest days of the civil rights movement. And for many of the people who listen and follow you and follow current events, I grew up in the segregated South. I went to water fountains that said colored. I went to bathrooms. I lived through not being able to go into movie theaters or hotels or restaurants. I jumped in a swimming pool during a civil rights demonstration, and all the white people jumped out. I mean, I've seen that. Yeah. I'm not telling you something that I read about in history.
Right, you lived it.
Or something that you saw depicted in some documentary. I was there. In fact, there's going to be a a celebration here in Atlanta in April. It's the 50th anniversary of the Brown versus Board, and they'll have I think a video from Ruby Bridges, who was in New Orleans, and I'll be a part of that. And there are others from the Little Rock Nine. So I have just never ever imagined that as far as we have come as a nation with the election of President Obama and the changes that we've seen in our society, that we would be where we are today,
right,
with this unbelievable, odious character who has somehow managed to divide the country. And it is really divided. I'm not speaking just sort of.
No.
Now, I do believe, by the way, that the majority of Americans are positive, good thinking people, well-intentioned people.
Sure.
But you also understand that because of some of the fallacies of our Constitution, right? That, as an example, there's 45 million people in California, and they get 2 senators. There's 500,000 people in North Dakota.
Right.
They get 2 senators. I mean, on what planet is that logical?
Right.
And how can you even fathom that there's any rational notion of fairness to that? And what does that mean? Why am I pointing that out? Because the Senate confirms judges.
That's right.
That's what the Senate does. If you want to know what the most important function for a president is, it is to put judges in place, because the judges are appointed for life. And for all of those people who somehow believe, oh, well, President Biden did, he's not been strong on Gaza. And admittedly, the Gaza situation is a debacle, and it's horrible, and it's disgraceful what's happening. And I wish that there was more that the president would do. Les McCann, the famous artist, he had a song. His most famous song was "Compared to What?" Right.
Yeah.
So the point of the matter is, while at least Biden is trying to find some avenue for a ceasefire or sending a humanitarian aid, you know what Trump is saying? Wipe them all out.
Right.
And yet there's still protests against Biden. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? Are you kidding me? I mean,
the logic is right.
This is what I'm saying. When I tell you it's Biden versus Satan, that's not hyperbole. I actually believe that Donald Trump will go down in history only behind Adolf Hitler as one of the most odious characters in world history, because he has managed to destroy America's democracy. And that's unbelievable to me.
And look what he did. Look what he did the day after the president gave an incredible State of the Union speech, talking about this country, talking about all the things that he has done and how he has been blocked by Trump people. And he has the president of Hungary in Mar-a-Lago.
A dictator.
Yes. And call him what he is. And, call him just a beautiful man, and just, and all these superlatives about him. But he is right in line with Putin, and now along with Donald Trump. This is where we're going if allowed to happen.
I'm stunned. And in addition to that, on just a micro level, he makes fun of the president's stutter.
Yeah.
I mean, who does this? I mean, from small to large, he is the most odious character that we've ever seen in this country. And so whenever I encounter people, the president, and so much whining, I will tell you something. I'm sick of whiners, right? It's just so much whining. If I hear any more, Biden did do this, Biden did, and let me tell you something. For Black people, right? I'm talking to all of you Black people.
Come on.
I'm talking to the Black people, right? Well, Biden did. Well, how about this? How about the fact that President Obama was there? He didn't put a Black woman on the Supreme Court. President Biden has put more Blacks in the federal judiciary than the rest of them combined. I mean, and so, Biden, he did. My bread is too high. What? My sausage. It costs too much to get an egg McMuffin. I mean, I've never heard so much whining in my life, and I keep saying to myself, "Well, you just wait until Trump gets back in,
right? Yeah,
and then where you're not even able to enjoy the life that you once thought." Right? In Florida, as an example, all of the efforts they just fired. Think about this: they fired all of the people in DEI and
Yeah.
diversity, all of those people have been fired from the jobs in public education in Florida. And it will now be in
And
your
it's really
state. It's
across
coming
the,
next in
across the
Texas.
country.
In fact, the legislature is considering that in
Oh, for
Texas right
sure.
now.
Yeah.
This is all a part of what Trump has brought. And so when I tell you people that whatever it is you may think about Joe Biden, I will tell you this. If you wait until Trump returns, then you will really
It's
see
too
the
late.
decimation of all the things that you thought were important in your children's life and in your grandchildren's future. And this is not some, I'm not into cliches and, because Biden is the president. I'm saying that he's been a very good president, not a perfect president. I don't know of one that's been
Yeah,
perfect.
that's what he
But
said.
I'll tell you this, again, compared to what?
Right.
Compared to Donald Trump, he is as good as it gets. And I will tell you let's also just be very direct, Black people, right? If you're looking for who has done important things for the Black community, canceling student loan debt, HBCU support, making certain that there are child care initiatives.
Yeah.
The
And look
his
at what
new
he
budget
talked
that he
about.
just put forward today,
Right.
the child care tax credit.
Yep.
I could go on and on and on. These are things that are important. When they put the child care tax credit, it cut child poverty by 50%.
Yep.
50%.
And look
and yet the Republicans are fighting it.
And when it went away, look how things skyrocketed. It's just, you talk to them because and I'm not saying this is Coy or any of our other youngins on our staff, but talk to the young people, especially because if you are to believe the numbers about young Black men who are against Joe Biden and are supporting Donald Trump because of the t-shirt, because of the tennis shoes, all that kind of nonsense, but they are supporting him. Talk to them about those kind of things and we're getting short on time, and I promised I wouldn't keep you all night, but talk to them about those issues that are most important that need to be addressed in regards to Joe Biden.
Let me just say this. I wouldn't waste 1 second on those Uncle Toms who want to vote for Donald Trump. And every time you see his it's almost reminiscent of, it's like a movie, right? It's like, like these Uncle Toms are standing behind Donald Trump. Did I say Uncle Tom? Yes, I did say it. I'll say it again, right? And from Clarence Thomas to this guy down in Florida to where do they buy them from? Yeah. I'm just wondering on what clearance rack do they get these Negroes from? Right. I can't even imagine how you could stand behind him when he says to your people, "Oh, you know why Black people like me? Because I got a photograph from the jail." Right. I really just it's mind-boggling. And so and let me also say this: the people that are going to be important are not these young Negroes, Uncle Toms, who are somehow, they want to follow Kanye West and other knuckleheads. The thing that really matters are Black women, right? Black women are the salvation of the Black race. And Black men have just let us down again and again and again. If you look at the 10% that Donald Trump got, it's mostly Black men, Uncle Toms, right? But so where I put all my faith is in you. The Black women, because Black women have saved us again and again and again. And for all these Negroes who, I don't like Donald, my cell phone coverage is not, you don't even worry about them. You know why? Because they don't vote. Right. At the end of it, what's so funny about this? At the end of the day, they don't even vote, right? But the people that go out and stand in the lines are Black women. And look like. So I wouldn't waste 1 second. Right. I wouldn't waste one. What I would do if I was Biden, and what I've advised the Democratic Party and those who are trying to get it, make sure that you find about where Black women are. And by the way, look, do you know, in the AU Center, I'm here in Atlanta, the home of the Civil Rights Movement, the Atlanta University Center, more Black colleges and universities. Right now, 75% of the students are Black women. Yep. 75%. What does that tell you? And that number continues to increase, and God bless them. right? I don't want to hear any more yakking about, oh, oh, you know what? I'm happy for them, and I'd love to see more Black women going to medical schools and law schools and representing us. And now that we have, think about this. We got a Black guy on the Supreme Court and Uncle Tom,
Right.
And I couldn't tell you the number of cases that have been 5-4 where his vote has handicapped climate change and donations to campaigns and our civil rights and a host of other things. You put a Black woman on there, and she is a star, an absolute star. So that's what I tell you, my people. Find Black women, get them to the polls, and Biden will win. And once he wins, then we can
continue to
a much better place.
Right? Yeah, and we will progress. We got seconds left. What do you think is going to happen with Fani Willis with the decision by the judge? Is she going to be disqualified, or is she going to keep her job?
I do not know, but let me just say this in your final few seconds. On what planet does a relationship between comrades at work have to do with him stealing the election?
Right.
Right.
I mean, think about this. What if somebody robbed a bank and then came into court and said, "Oh, the judge is having a relationship with his court reporter. I don't think the case ought to be dismissed." What?
Right.
It's on what planet does a relationship between these people who work together have to do with the essential elements of a criminal case?
It doesn't.
It's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. And so there are an awful lot of people, by the way, this judge who thought he was very slick, right? Which is, oh, you know what? I'll wait for another 2 weeks. Your people may not know this, right?
Come on.
So the judge who's let this thing go on and on and on, ad infinitum, he comes up, you know what? I think I'll take another 2 weeks before I make a decision. Really? You know why he said 2 weeks? Because the qualifying ended on Friday.
That's right.
Right. So it was you know what? Let me think about this. How much more information do you need? You had everything from his father
to your decision from that
think about this for another couple. How about now he's got 3 people running against him?
Right.
So there you go. Right. How about it? So I'm hoping that he makes the right decision. It's insanity. It's absolute insanity what they've done on this case. But it's just part and parcel of the whole Trump agenda. Defer
this country.
It's nothing done than more division, and there you go. You know what? I'm so glad I get a chance to talk to you guys. It's always fun.
Well, we love having you. And Coy, we're going to give you the final word. What were you going to say?
This country, believe it or not, has a history of putting Black women on the stand to publicly shame and disgrace them every time they have to prove something that is going on in their life. If you look back in history, there was a young woman where this started with back in when we were slaves, unfortunately, where there was something that happened to her and she had to get in front of a court and explain in front of a group of white men what happened to her over and over and over. And instead of going with this story, the whole setup is to set up her to be publicly embarrassed and shamed so that the court of public opinion can divert everybody's attention towards something else. So this is the same thing that's happening with Fani Willis. Whether or not people agree with her being a DA or not, the issue is this man tried to tamper with the election.
But he's going to use
whole
her
relationship has nothing to do with that. So going and having her name all these details is just a way to publicly embarrass and shame her to make her look like she's somebody bad when she didn't do anything wrong.
And it has nothing to do with the essential elements of his criminal conduct.
Interference, right.
So, I mean, it's just it's shocking. That's why they call it Uncle Tom's cabin rather than Uncle Thomasina's cabin. It's the same, it's been their way forever. And
Bill Campbell, thank you so much. Really
always enjoy to see you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
I hope so. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Take care. That is the great mayor, former mayor of Atlanta, Bill Campbell, and
that's why we like them.
That's right. That's right. And you just push play, and he's on. But that's we just need to be hear those words. And Coy, let's talk about some trending topics and some things that he referenced in terms of what's going on in the news. This just breaks my heart. This news came out today that the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, the great Marcia Fudge, the Honorable Marcia Fudge, announced today that she is going to step down from her post as secretary in the Biden cabinet. saying that after decades of public service, she's been a mayor in Ohio, she's been a congresswoman from the great state of Ohio, and now she is leaving her federal position as Secretary of HUD. And she says it's time to go home. I do believe strongly that I have done just about everything I could do at HUD for this administration as we go into this crazy, silly season of an election. Tell us how you really feel. Madam Secretary, she has served as a cabinet secretary for 3 years, steering the federal agency through housing crises in the wake of COVID-19. And she is only the second Black woman to head the agency. And she said after nearly 5 decades in public service, including more than a decade in Congress, she's retiring from public life. You have, as I said in a post today, where she made her announcement, well done, Madam Secretary. You more than earned and deserve a well-rested retirement and to do whatever your heart desires. And we thank you. I have been a fan of hers for a very long time, and we had her for years come on the Joiner Show, and I've been trying to get her on here to talk about some of the initiatives with HUD, and hopefully we'll get that before she leaves office. The re-election campaign of President Biden released a new digital advertisement targeting Donald Trump over comments the former president made about cutting government programs, including Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. It's a 20-second ad highlighted by a statement by Trump, and the ad will be on Mr. Biden's former Twitter, the platform formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads social media accounts. And the Biden campaign closes with footage from the president's State of the Union speech when he said, if anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. The ad was part of a series of responses by the president and his campaign to a Trump interview, which they seized in an opportunity to attack the Republican for suggesting cuts to programs that benefit more than 150 million Americans, many of them older voters. and truth be told, if he keeps having to pay out some of these lawsuits, he may be looking for his Social Security check
right.
Before not too long. Right. Mayor Bill Campbell was talking about measles and how they are the cases are escalating. They're surging with reports of confirmed in 17 states. Health officials in the U.S. are monitoring more cases of measles. A medical facility in Sacramento, Coy, is working to contact roughly 300 people who may have been exposed to the measles. Doctors at UC Davis Health say a child was treated for the highly contagious disease March 5th after traveling abroad. In the Midwest, Chicago has confirmed 5 cases of measles since 2019. And a doctor at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago said this is not a cause for panic or a cause for alarm. It's called for good prevention, which is immunization. And a lot of parents are choosing to delay childhood vaccinations, such as the MMR vaccine. Doctors worry that toddlers remain vulnerable as measles spreads. And as of last Thursday, 45 cases were reported in the state so far. So we're getting close to 50. Doesn't sound like a lot, but they're growing exponentially. And in Chicago, as I mentioned, they had these 5 cases, and a number of people are migrants coming from the South, and those that are bused into the different cities like Chicago and Washington, D.C. and New York. And so their children as well as adults who are coming down with these cases in Chicago. And it's a dangerous time. And I just found this out, that if you come into contact or come into a room where a person with measles has been, the spread and the germs can continue to live for up to 2 hours after a person has been. So like if they're on the bus, if they're in a community center, if they are going to, get food or whatever, and the children or adults have this disease, it can be spread. And especially as people are prone to, just throw out their mask and not use them anymore.
And these are old diseases. Like this is stuff that came from when people lived with their farm animals.
Yeah.
Why would you want to feel that? Why would you want to expose your children to that? Why would you not protect yourself against that? Like,
Well, and that's a part of the
disgusting.
ridiculous notion, posed by the former administration that, it's injecting some sort of poison into your body as opposed to doing good things. And I don't know how people make that flip in
I don't.
regarding.
I just it's certain things that I can understand. That's like, all right, maybe not this, maybe not that. But when it comes down to stuff like measles, mumps, chickenpox,
Yeah,
believe it or not, if you guys paid attention in school, those diseases killed entire populations.
right, right,
Okay, enter the chat, Native Americans.
right.
Let's talk about it. This is not something that you can kind of get over. You sit out for a couple of weeks. Some of these diseases have detrimental effects.
For
Some of these
sure.
can make your
They
children
kill.
deaf,
Yeah,
blind.
yeah.
Some of them can cause
Sterile.
brain damage.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's certain things like I get it on some things. We've had this discussion before, and I understand it on some occasions. But for things like this that have been wiped out, that have been eradicated, like, come on, let's not even play around with that.
And let's not even talk about polio, which was a horrible disease before you and I were even born. But the polio vaccine saved unknown number of lives, and people changed people's lives and took them out of the possibility of living in an iron lung. There's still
Yeah, the
stories
iron
about,
lung,
yeah,
right?
so stories of people that are living in an iron lung as a result of having been exposed to the polio virus.
I think I had a cousin, unfortunately, and I'm like the youngest in my generation, so my cousins are considerably older than me, quite a few of them. But apparently, there was a cousin that I had that passed away during their childhood years. I want to say their early teen years, preteen years of polio, and I think this was back like in the '60s or something like that. So yeah, that is something like, who wants to like bring out another iron lung? We just got over a pandemic where people were on respirators. Do you really want to take it
Right,
back to the iron lung? Like, that's worse than the respirator.
right, right. How'd you do this weekend with daylight saving time?
I was doing fine until my mom told me it was daylight savings time.
Oh, so you did you not remember to spring ahead, or did you turn up late for something on Sunday?
No, I didn't. Everything is pretty much digital now. The only thing
Yeah,
I had to
for your
change were
phone.
a couple of clocks here. And when my mom said it, I don't know, it just threw off the whole conversation. She was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have told you that." So she just laughed at me while I kind of like panicked in my mind and just tried to adjust accordingly because I had less time in the evening on yesterday than I planned to get ready for today. But I
Oh,
mean, so far so good. I just made sure I got to bed a little bit earlier and just went on from there. I think it's really like not thinking about it, but I
mm-hmm.
did like that proposal that we had. Was it last year or the year before to vote to get rid of that?
Mm-hmm. So would you rather have, because I like the more hours of light, and so I like when we get off here, I feel okay about going and doing stuff. It doesn't
Mhm.
stop me, but I like the idea that it's still light outside when I finish here, as opposed to everything getting dark like a couple of hours before.
Right. No, I like the idea of more hours of light, but if we're gonna leave it like spring ahead now, let's not change it later. Just
Right,
leave
right.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Because to say, oh, it's for agrarian purposes and people, plant, well, most of us don't live on farms. And so, let's pick one and stick with it. And some people do. They stick with, regular time period, or they stick with daylight saving time. But, the back and forth, it really bothers a lot of people. It doesn't bother me so much. The only time that I enjoyed when daylight saving time would leave was when we would, fall back or spring ahead actually this time of year, and then I worked 1 hour less when I was working overnight. that was
Well,
that was a good thing for me.
it was definitely a disruption in the clubs. I can remember that. It's true.
Oh, it's, you know what? You're a girl right after Yolanda Starks White's heart. I just
I
tell you.
remember that night was long. Oh.
Yeah, that's true. So we lost an hour of sleep, but my sleeping is such that that hour didn't make much of a difference. I was awake at 4 o'clock instead of 5, and so big whoop, I guess. It took me a little bit longer to fall back asleep, but I really don't mind daylight saving time. It doesn't, and getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, for a morning radio show didn't make much difference to me either. So just pick one and let's go with it, and I think we'll all be okay. Um, so did you watch? Moving to entertainment, did you watch the Academy Awards last night, or that has no
Yeah,
interest to you?
I didn't even know it was on, and so I'm looking at all these notifications today and seeing everybody's outfits, and I'm like, wow, I'm way off the loop.
So you didn't get my text saying enjoy the Academy Awards? You didn't?
No.
Oh,
I didn't.
well. Well, I'm sorry you missed that. Um, we didn't have a meeting because the Academy Awards started an hour earlier, and it was a full 3.5 hours. So it went from 6 to 9:30 here in the Central Time Zone, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the outcome so much of some of the winners and losers. I really was. Davine Joy Randolph, young black woman, won for The Holdovers for Best Supporting Actress, but she was up against Danielle Brooks, who I absolutely adored in The Color Purple, and she's a star of stage and screen. And I just had just such a love for Danielle Brooks's performance. But I thought Joy Randolph did a very fine job. So I'm glad that she won, and she was the only black person to win in the acting categories. The gentleman who did the adapted the screenplay for American Fiction, a young black man. His name is Cord. He first time directing, and all of this acclaim for the movie American Fiction, which starred Jeffrey Wright and Sterling K. Brown. Sterling K. Brown was nominated for Best Supporting. Jeffrey Wright was for Leading Actor, and I thought that they were both incredible. And it was just what really grabbed me, Coy, was for the acting categories, they had former winners of Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Leading Actor, and Leading Actress. Five from each of the categories. And they each spoke about one of the nominees. And I thought that the ones that they spoke about, the women in the Best Supporting Actress, was just, it brought me to tears in some respects. I thought that the words that they said, and a lot of it was because these women were friends and fans of the women that they were speaking about who were nominated. Not so much in some of the other categories, but I thought it was a very nice touch. And I thought Jimmy Kimmel did an amazing job holding holding court there last night as host again for the Academy Awards. And Sterling K. Brown, you are going to get your Oscar. You may not have gotten it last night. You may not have gotten it at the Academy Awards, the most recent, but you are going to get it. And you did a really good job in American Fiction, and your time is coming. And Jeffrey Wright, you deserve that as well as the man who played Bayard Rustin, Domingo. He is just incredible, such a gifted actor, and the injustice was that there were two strong black men that kind of canceled each other out in that, and also the one thing that could have made history was a Native American woman, Lily Gladstone. She was in Killer Flowers of the Martin Scorsese movie. She was up for leading actress, and she really should have won. Emma Stone, for Poor Things, but she just gave an incredible performance. So that's just my take on it. If you all want to talk about that at a later date, I see that we are running out of time, and Coy didn't watch, so we can't have that. Didn't even know.
Repeat.
but just a really good show. I really enjoyed it. And the Barbie, I like the movie Barbie. I think didn't get all that, especially America Ferrera, who was nominated for that movie as well. Let us move and close out with Yogi's Jewel. A gentle approach can be inspiring and motivating in leadership. A gentle approach can be inspiring and motivating in leadership. Why do I always take these so personally? Thank you, Yolanda, for the jewel. And Coy, I hope that there's still enough light outside there. I can't see through your blinds, but I hope there's enough light outside for you to go outside and maybe get some.
Oh
Whoa,
no, it's a
no,
little
no,
dark.
no. Okay, 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 okay. Well, I hope that the extended days of sunlight will enable you to get outside and play.
It will. I'm gonna make
Okay.
use of it this year.
Okay. Promise. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we appreciate it, and thank you, everyone. And Coy, keep up the good work. We will see you in the newsletter all week. Appreciate you. Bye, everyone. Aloha.